Emmi02SM's box is going to look very similar to that of Samus's box, except that it's gigantic and huge, and I hope you have space for this thing, because my god. Right out of that box, the Emmi02SM will be standing over 8 inches tall, which is still eclipsing that of the standard Figma figure. Shokugan, movie, not the King series, but yeah, it's pretty much the same size. HG, finger puppet. This thing is a unit. And I don't think even unit properly describes the amazingness that is on display here. This is absolutely a feat, but let me tell you, it gets even better because Emmi can get taller. Once the limbs are fully extended, Emmi will be standing over 11 inches tall, further eclipsing every single Figma release that I own personally, which is mostly just Metroid, and in comparison to other larger figures I have, it's a done deal. Wow. Just wow. Like, look at this thing. Wow, that's it. Wow. So the majority of this Emmi figure, Emmi02SM, or Extraplanetary Multiform Mobile Identifier, will be molded in different colored plastics, and there really isn't going to be too much paint on this figure. The knuckle guards on the feet over here might be painted. Knuckle guards on the fingers over here might be painted. And they surely look it, although they could be separate pieces now that I'm really looking at it. The rubber pistons, yes, rubber pistons on the Emmi's torso and back will be painted. The silver gears and the red eye looking thing on the titties and torso will be painted. These piston looking things on the Emmi's biceps will be painted. These white panels along the sides of Emmi's head will actually be painted. And the wires and buckle looking things around the Emmi's head on its neck will be painted as well. Just going to showcase what's painted on the back, those gears, that red eye, those pistons, maybe the waist rings, but everything else, as I'm sure you could tell, just different colored plastics latched onto one another. The Emmi were essentially made to be intimidation by definition. They don't exactly need all of these exuberant colors or anything like that. They're entirely discernible from one another via faceplates, latent abilities, and their overall color scheme. So yes, Figma could probably make all of the Emmi and make me one bankrupt MF. I'm going to give paint and just coloration a solid star. Everything that is painted is nice, and the nice separation between this gray, some black thrown in there, with the white, it all looks very appeasing to the eye. Now let's take a look at detail. Taking a look at these extraplanetary grippers. God damn it. We are going to see some tiny and minute detailing on there to showcase that these toes can bend in-game, just not here, which is probably a good thing. We're also going to get some nice panel lining alongst the armor pieces over here. From the shins, moving into the knees, legs overall, we're going to have a lot of technological looking stuff over here. Gyros, pistons, bends, and whistles. Moving into the thigh, where we're going to get a little bit of the same yet again. 02SM's abdomen's gonna look a little bit like an AVA unit. It's just going to have that multi-segmented armor feel to it, which is cool. And from there, you can really see the very sleek and technologically advanced look really taking hold of this thing. I really like how starting at the back, moving into the neck, head, and torso, you're going to get this very mesh-looking suit on the Emmi. Almost like it could be a biological being in there, but once you see what the thing can do in the game, it's like, if there's any human in there, it ain't much human anymore.
Gabago, over here.
And again, you'll see that mesh at the very high up belly button looking thing, moving into the neck and the major, like, shoulder area and head. Just such a cool little detail. These bits of armor over here are probably going to be the pieces of armor that have the most detailing on them. Yet again, very minimal, but practical. Not that I would know much about practicality in terms of cybernetics, because what in the goddamn fuck did it take to make this? And we got the front of the knees and the shins over here featuring piston-looking detailings and such. Yet again, just like the paint job, this is so very minimal and scary at the same time. Again, it really didn't need much to fit the part. And seeing as how these things had to follow up the SAX, Samus Aran X, from Metroid Fusion, I think that was properly communicated just by looking at this thing. What is it with me and mono-eyed robots that I just love so much? Detailing is going to get A solid star. Now let's take a look at accessories. E.M.M.I will come with very big stand, oh boy. The alternate faceplate, which I call flower head. The quick time event needle death head or DNA extraction head. And 2 alternate faceplates. Leaving this eventual $120 figure entirely outfitted with everything it could possibly need. Joys. In terms of the stand over here, it is going to be your basic stand, but I've never gotten one like this, and even Good Smile Company says that this is a special stand. Even though the Emmi really isn't all that heavy, this stand feels like it could withstand any and all poses you can get the Emmi into. I mean, the range of movement is basic, you've seen it all before, just not quite like this, especially in my collection. And when it comes to putting E.M.M.I on the stand, you have 2 choices. You can either go with the back port, which I do suggest most, or you could go with the butt port over here. The back port just seems more feasible for both modes. Ugh. Beautiful. Now, when it comes to the flower head attachment, we are going to have to take this head off. Now, when you take the head off, identifying the pieces that won't be glued is actually a lot easier than I originally thought, as this O and these 2 brackets over here are going to signify which pieces aren't glued on. They even showcase that in the instructions. Okay, that's Japanese. Hold on. Okay, they even showcase that in the instructions over here as well. Look for the 2 bars connecting to the big O. Great anime. Now, unless you got some really strong fingernails, I would suggest using a part separator to get these off. Just like so, and just like so. I dropped the piece. Getting the alternate pieces on is actually a heck of a lot easier than taking them off, and you just gotta give them a little bit of force, and there you go. As for getting the head back on, as you can see, 2 big holes, 2 small holes. Match those up with the 2 big pegs and the 2 small pegs, and you'll be golden, pony person. Oh yes. Bit of an articulation spoiler, but I guess it was obvious. The head can swivel, and you're going to need these on the side of the head. Match up these 2 plastic trenches with these thingies on the side that we just added, and just bring them together like so. Swivel the head until you get an X, and boom sharoo, you got it. QuickTime Event Needle Death Head will be applied the same way you apply the head at standard. 2 small pegs, 2 big pegs. Gently take the head off, just like that. Now you just gotta reapply those 2 words, and do be careful. This needle is sharp, and it will bend, but look at that. So fantastic and scary. So in terms of accessories, this gal's gonna get a solid star. It has everything that it could have possibly needed. Would I have loved some damaged Emmi parts as accessories? Sure, but $120 for a figure that can go from 8 to almost 12 inches tall and be articulated in nearly every portion of its body? I'm okay. But I said the A word, so let's get to the articulation segment, which... Pause the video and get a snack. The feet can go up just like that, and then right on back for running and standing poses, but the feet can also swivel right around for a crazy awesome pivot, which when it comes to this figure, you're going to want to be doing a lot of. At the shins over here, they can indeed extend, revealing some new detailing over there. At this little piston knee thing over here, you will be able to kick forward. Just like that, and you'll be able to go right on back. At the knee over here, we will get a bend, which will showcase some piston movement. And it's rather nice. And the pistons, I feel, are big enough pieces, and there actually is going to be a separate joint over here to move it about, so I actually feel pretty confident in moving this around and it not breaking. Bandai. And, you know, just be careful. I'm sure if you really wanted to take these things out, you could, but I really don't see a need to. At the leg, you will be able to go out about that far at the hip and then come right back in. You will be able to rotate all the way around very nicely. So kicking forward and kicking back for all of the crazy acrobatics this character can achieve is very, very easy. And I guess this counts as a thigh swivel since that is a peg joint in there. I don't believe I'm missing any other swivels, so let's get to the torso. Thank God these are rubber pistons because look at this bend. Look at that. Look at it. She's peering down at you. Ha! You didn't hit that A button quick enough, did ya? And you can accommodate a decent bend back, but as you see, these rubber pistons over here, they're kind of getting in the way. And if that really does bother you, these rubber pistons can be taken out, and you can achieve a decent bend back. But you know something? When we get to that point in articulation, you won't need to do that. And there are 2 holes on either side of Emmi's back port over here that will allow these pistons to go right back in. I've done this a million times since getting her out of the box. It's not intimidating at all, I assure you. Oh, yeah, and same thing for the front as well. That beautiful bend forward and back can also accommodate some lovely bends to the left and to the right, and it's all thanks to a ball joint over here and a ball joint over here, and I'm pretty sure a ball joint up in here as well. Down here, it's just a peg, so you can swivel really, really nicely. Love the way those pistons look when you do swivel, and thankfully, there's no pushback from those pistons. Very nice. Yeah, looking real closely, there is no ball joint right in between here. This is actually a solid piece, which is probably for the better now that I think about it. But that articulation is just so nice and buttery smooth, and the bends, either left, right, front, or back, are so nice and deep. Oh my god. Now let's move on to the arms. At the shoulder blade over here, you will be able to swivel all the way around. The shoulder blades over here are going to be able to move at this point and at this point as well. So you can get them further away from the body or closer to the body, and you will be able to move them up and back down when you see fit. So this will actually aid in the arms being able to go all the way out. T-posing robotic flower-headed demon from my nightmares. Alright, let's just give ourselves some room here, because up next we're going to take a look at the arms, which unfold. So we're just gonna pull the arm like so, and there we go. The arms do indeed get longer. From there, at the bicep, we will get a full swivel all the way around. Very nice. Lovely elbow bend, another lovely elbow bend, and a forearm bend out and in. Just like that. This is the closest I've ever gotten to stretchy arm and extendo fingers from my life as a teenage robot with a figure, because yet another extension exists right at the forearm over here. Crazy. At the hand over here, we will get all of these fingers on peg joints, which can hinge in and out. This is the part I was most terrified of, but after posing this thing and messing around with it for a couple of days, these things actually hold their weight fairly well. And I will say to still be careful with them, because again, you see how small these are. You can only imagine how small and thin the pegs must be, but it feels fully thought out and doesn't feel like an afterthought on Figma's part, because, I mean, they move beautifully. And to sell you on this even further, we are going to get a swivel at the wrist area. My god. If you're not impressed with this thing yet, I don't know when you're going to be. At these shoulder chest plate things over here that can move in and out, they are on a ball joint, so it seems. Oh yeah, can you see it? That's a little baby ball joint. Not gonna get much movement out of these, but you'll get enough. I do believe these are on ball joints to kind of swivel in and swivel out to give the head a bit more room. At the neck over here, we are going to get a ball joint, so that will aid in the figure looking up, just like that. And looking down, not very far. You will see some nice side-to-side movement at that ball joint, but give the head joint a little tug, a tiny one, just like that. There will be another ball joint over here, as I'm sure you all guessed before, and you'll be able to look higher up and a bit further down. Not by much, though. And of course, you can get a full swivel at the head, and you will be able to get a full swivel at the neck over here. And yeah, I will say I was a little bummed with the restricted movement that we got at the neck, but for the most part, do you remember that torso? Do you remember those hips, the legs? This thing looking down is so much easier than just pointing a ball joint down in the neck. It makes up for it. And how many points of articulation was that?
Jesus Christ.
I have to cover one more thing. Throughout the game, no matter what Emmi you are facing, these robots display one hell of a friggin' moveset. They're able to contort their bodies into a crawling mode. They're able to spin around and do all this crazy shizmoid. Can this figure do that? Yes, it can. Now, as you can see in these instructions, Good Smile is instructing you to take the legs off and place them on backward. joints. Why is that? Let me show you. Despite what the instructions say, these leg joints do not want to actually come out of the legs, but they'll come out of the hips just fine. So regardless, whether the joints come out of your legs or come out of your hips, I feel like it'll work either way. Turn the Emmi around, and then reapply right leg where left leg should be, and left leg where right leg should be, and you should hear a snap. After you've got both of the legs applied, rotate the biceps to the back, and all of a sudden, it looks like Emmi's doing that hucking back pose it does before it goes into crawl mode. And when you look at the science of all this, i.e. turn it around, you see what's going on here? Bring the head back down, rotate the arms forward so those pistons are visible. Yes, on both sides. Bring the legs down. We're almost there, we're almost there. Now, a lot of this is gonna have to do with how you want the Emmi to be looking as it's crawling. I do recommend you bend these fingers back as far as they will go. That way the figure's weight is not going to be resting on them, but right here. And like I just said, pose accordingly. And again, protect the fingies. You want to protect these. Again, it really is just a choice of how you want the figure posed in the crawling position. It may seem like you're doing a lot more work than needed, but honestly, I find this way more efficient than just taking out the pistons. And Viola Lion, you've got it. It's in the crawling pose. It looks great. And a lot of that articulation is still going to remain. As you can see, I just had her in that splayed attack ready mode, and here she is in a nice tighter, more in the weight mode. This thing can really go from shelf space killer to shelf space saver in just a few clicks. Just look at that. Now, since the figure's frontal chest is now its back and its back now its underbelly, the articulation for the head's gonna be a bit in the reverse, as there really isn't going to be a bend down, but mostly a bend up. But when you really think about it, this thing is now so low to the ground. Looking up is all it really needs to do, as looking down, it would just be looking straight ahead, which is mostly what it needs to do, and that might be a cope, but I do not care. I'd buy that for $120, and I did. Also, just look at this. From a crawl to a leap. Perfection. So, articulation. Bountiful and plentiful. That means posability. Yeah, you guessed it. A lot. And no matter what you do with this figure, it just looks cool. Menacing. Terrifying. You want to run away from it. I'm just completely besides myself, as I feel like every little idea that creeps into my brain, be it of my own desire or just to recreate something from the game, I feel like I can do it with this figure. And that is a huge, huge plus for a figure that I don't think Figma has ever made at this size, to be completely honest. I could be wrong there, but nothing feels limited. Nothing feels like it was not thought out in the best way possible. And again, I am besides myself. This is a beautiful figure in every way, shape, and form, and I have 0 notes. Figure of the year. Done. This is a 10 solid star type figure right here. Again, in everything that it offers and everything that it comes with. If you can find it, whether you're a fan of Metroid or not, and you want it, get it. I've been ShinRobjira. I do so hope you all enjoyed this review. I hope it wasn't too friggin' long. I've been recording since 9 o'clock, and it is now 11. Check out my social media, including my Patreon, where for $1 a month, you'll get access to all of my scheduled content before it releases, sometimes days, hours, sometimes weeks or months. It do be working that way. And I will see you all on Friday with a review of the X Plus Toho Large Monster Series Shin Godzilla. I want a vacation. I'm gonna take a day off this coming week, maybe, if I can. Anyway, bye.